Ever get that feeling like we're stuck in a financial system we just don't control?
Hmm.
We all complain about taxes, inflation, all that, but what if it's not just like bad luck? What if it's the system itself that's messed up?
Ooh, now that's an interesting thought.
Right. So today's deep dive, that's exactly where we're going. We're tackling Jimmy Song's argument from his piece, Bitcoin and the Problem of Political Authority.
Okay, I'm intrigued already.
Get ready because it gets deep fast. We're talking about how much power we've actually given governments, maybe without even realizing it, and could something like Bitcoin actually change that whole dynamic?
It's fascinating how Song takes this beyond just Bitcoin's cool, use it. He goes right for the heart of it, this idea of political authority.
Yeah, that sounds kind of textbooky.
It does, but stick with me, because he makes this really compelling case that governments often, they're incentivized to keep the problems we hate around, or even make them worse.
Hold on, why would any system encourage its own WN problems? That doesn't track.
Think about it. Problems need solutions, right? And those solutions, for governments, well, they often mean more power, more control. Song uses healthcare as a prime example.
Okay, healthcare always a hot topic.
Since the 70s, get this, administrative positions in healthcare have exploded, like 3,000% growth.
Hmm.
Doctors, not even close.
3,000, seriously, that's insane. So what's the takeaway there?
The system itself, it's feeding its own needs, maybe at the expense of, actual patients, actual care. And that's what he means by political authority. It's not just some abstract idea. It's about how much control governments actually have in every aspect of our lives. And we often just accept it.
Because it's for our own good, right? Order, progress, all that.
Exactly. Which brings us to another big one for Song inflation.
Everyone's favorite topic, meta.
Right. But he calls it a hidden tax.
Hidden tax. Okay, explain that one.
It's sneaky, right?
Yeah.
Every time more money's printed, the money you've already got, it's worth less. Your savings, your buying power, it all takes a hit. And the government, they haven't directly taxed you.
But they've taken a bite out of your money anyway.
Exactly. And the worst part is the people who can least afford it who feel it most. Those on fixed incomes, relying on savings, they're the ones really hurting. And Song says, because it's so gradual, most people don't even fully realize it's happening.
It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. You're bleeding, but you don't know where it's coming from.
Oof, that's a powerful image. But you get it. And this is all connected to what he calls rent-seeking, too.
Rent seeking, is that like landlords being greedy?
Kinda,
Mm.
but think bigger picture. Imagine your landlord jacking up the rent constantly, but never actually, fixing anything. That's what Song says governments can do, too. They get bigger, not always to help us, but just to exist and take more of our resources in the process.
So it's about rewarding the system, not actual progress. And this ties into cryptocurrency too, right? With the whole altcoin debate.
Bingo. Song calls them Fiat 2.0 because in his view, a lot of them, they're just recreating the same power structures, the same control issues that Bitcoin was designed to get away from. They still have that central authority figure who can manipulate things,
So same problem, different disguise.
pretty much.
So we're talking about centralized control being a root problem. Where does that even leave us?
Enter Bitcoin. Right. At least according to Song, it's like the big disruptor.
He definitely sees it as a game changer. With Bitcoin, you've got a system designed without that central authority figure. No government, no institution calling the shots, and the supply. It's fixed. Remember that whole hidden tax thing? With Bitcoin, that just doesn't fly.
So no more printing money to solve problems,
Hmm.
which, let's be honest, rarely works anyway. But doesn't that make Bitcoin sound a bit old-fashioned? Like digital gold, maybe?
Yeah.
Safe, but not exactly cutting edge. The digital gold comparison comes up a lot, but it's not the whole story. I mean, sure, both are scarce, but Bitcoin, it's also this global payment network. You can transfer value instantly, no banks, no middlemen, no governments. And that's what Song's really getting at, true individual control. Your money, your rules.
Sounds pretty utopian. But let's get real for a second. There's got to be a downside, right? We're only getting one side of the story here.
Of course, every system has its flaws.
Hmm.
We're deep diving into Song's perspective here, but yeah, Bitcoin has its own set of challenges. Volatility, for one, that makes it a risky investment sometimes. And then there's the question of scale. Can it actually handle it if everyone jumps on board? And we can't ignore the environmental impact of Bitcoin mining. Song doesn't really touch on that here.
Right, the energy consumption debate. That's a whole other deep dive right there.
Totally. But even beyond the practical stuff, the tech side, Song's argument, it goes beyond just Bitcoin as a currency. you know?
Mhm.
He's questioning how we structure power itself. That's deep.
Yeah, like how much control are we willing to give up in exchange for what? Security, order, and at what point does that backfire?
Exactly. He talks about the social contract, this idea that we've agreed to give up some of our individual freedom in exchange for protection, for society to function. But he's asking, is that always the best deal? Have we given up too much?
It makes you think. What's the trade-off we're actually making, and are we okay with that?
Those are the questions he wants us wrestling with. And trust me, there are no easy answers.
So where does that leave us? Did we just get our minds blown by like a radical Bitcoin manifesto, or is there more to it?
It's rarely about simple answers, right? I think Song's point is more like a bit of a wake-up call. He's not saying go off the grid, buy Bitcoin, that's it.
Mm.
But he is making us really look at these systems we just accept. Do they actually work the way they should? And at what cost?
It's easy to ignore that stuff, right? We're busy just living our lives. But when you really think about it, like we're doing here, it's kind of wild how much these big systems shape our lives, even if we don't see it.
Exactly. And that's what I find so interesting about this whole conversation. It's not just about understanding Bitcoin or political theory or any of that. It's how it applies to us, right here, right now. Our own relationship with, like, authority in general. The choices we make about our own money.
Yeah, it makes it personal. So for everyone listening, here's something to chew on. Let's imagine just for a sec. There's a system where you get to choose how much government, how much control you're cool with. Maybe more freedom means less of a safety net, right? More control over your own money, but also more responsibility if things go wrong. Where's your line? What's the balance that feels right?
It's a thought experiment, but it makes you think.
Yeah,
What's more important, right? Individual freedom or the security of having a group, total financial freedom, or having some regulations even if it means limits. No easy answers, but it's healthy to at least ask the question.
totally. And maybe by even having these conversations, pushing ourselves to imagine something different, we can actually start building a future that reflects what we really value.
Exactly. And with things like Bitcoin constantly shaking things up, these conversations are only getting more important.
So true. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Bitcoin, political power, and honestly, the future of pretty much everything. Until next time, keep asking the big questions, keep exploring different perspectives. It's amazing what you might discover.